You're playing a great game. Lots of pieces. Solid position. And then your opponent slides a rook to your back rank, and it's checkmate. Your own pawns trapped your own king. This is the back rank mate, and it's the #1 way that games are decided at the intermediate level. Here is the most important checkmate pattern for intermediate players. Look at black's king on g8. It's sitting behind 3 pawns on f7, g7, and h7. Those pawns look safe, right? They're protecting the king. But watch what happens. White plays rook to e8. That's check. And it's also checkmate. The king can't move to f8 or h8 because the rook controls the entire 8th rank. And it can't move to f7, g7, or h7 because its own pawns are in the way. The king is trapped by its own army. Let's understand exactly why the king is trapped. After rook to e8 check, the king needs to escape. Can it go to f8? No, the rook on e8 controls that square. Can it go to h8? No, the rook controls h8 too. The rook controls every square on the 8th rank. What about moving forward? Can the king go to f7? No, there's a pawn there. Can it go to g7? Pawn. h7? Pawn. Every single escape square is blocked. 3 squares blocked by the rook, 3 squares blocked by its own pawns. That's the deadly combination. In a real game, back rank mate doesn't happen out of thin air. It happens when both players have castled and the rooks are active on open files. Look at this position. It's a mirror image. White has a rook on d1 and a king on g1 with pawns on f2, g2, h2. Black has a rook on d8 and a king on g8 with pawns on f7, g7, h7. Both sides have the same weakness. If black's rook leaves the d-file, white can play rook d1 to d8 checkmate. And if white's rook leaves the d-file, black can play rook d8 to d1 checkmate. Both sides must be aware of this danger at all times. The cure for back rank mate is beautifully simple. It's called a Luft, a German word meaning air hole. You push one of the pawns in front of your king to create an escape square. Look at this position. Black has pushed the h-pawn from h7 to h6. Now if white plays rook to e8 check, is it checkmate? No. The king can escape to h7. That one little pawn move made all the difference. You've given your king a breathing hole. Making a Luft is one of the most important defensive moves in chess. Whenever you have a few free tempos and your back rank looks weak, push that h-pawn or g-pawn 1 square forward. Now let's use the back rank mate as a weapon. Before every move, glance at your opponent's king. Are the pawns still on the 7th rank? Is there a Luft? If not, look for ways to get a rook or queen onto their back rank. In this position, white has 2 rooks on a1 and e1. Black's king on g8 has no Luft. The pawns are all on the 7th rank. Black has a bishop on e6 blocking the e-file. But white can look for ways to remove that defender. If the bishop moves or is captured, rook e1 to e8 would be checkmate. Always be thinking, can I get onto the back rank? Let's recap. Back rank mate happens when a rook or queen delivers check on the back rank and the king is trapped by its own pawns. It's the single most common checkmate pattern in intermediate chess. To prevent it, make a Luft. Push one pawn to give your king an escape square. To use it offensively, check if your opponent's king has a Luft. If not, look for ways to invade with your rooks or queen. And remember, sometimes a sacrifice is worth it if it opens the path to the back rank. This pattern will win you dozens of games. Remember, back rank mate happens when a rook or queen checks on the back rank and the king is trapped by its own pawns. The cure is simple. Make a Luft by pushing one pawn to create an escape square. And always check whether your opponent has a Luft. If they don't, look for ways to invade. Next lesson, simple tactics, where you'll learn to spot free pieces.